This swashbuckling adventure is all about the pirates of the Caribbean and the curse of the Black Pearl. You can read along with me in your book. You will know it's time to turn the page when you hear this sound. Are you ready? Sail away with me now. Elizabeth Swann stood on the deck of an English sailing ship, dreaming of adventures in Port Royale, a Caribbean island where she and her father were going to live. She began to sing a favorite song.
Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.
An old sailor hushed her.
Quiet, missy. Cursed pirates sail these waters. You don't want to bring them down in a snow, do you?
I think it'd be rather exciting to meet a pirate.
Then Elizabeth looked across the waves and spotted something.
Look, there's a boy in the water.
The sailors pulled the boy to safety. Elizabeth knelt beside him, and the boy awoke.
Will Turner.
Then he passed out again. Around his neck, Elizabeth saw a gold medallion with an Aztec skull carved on it. He's a pirate, she thought. Quickly, she slipped the medallion from his neck and hid it. Years passed, and Elizabeth and Will grew up. They cared very much for each other, but Will was just a blacksmith and Elizabeth was a governor's daughter, so they believed they could never marry. But some things were about to change. On a hot day, Elizabeth and her father attended Captain Norrington's promotion ceremony near the city walls high above the sea. Unknown to them, a clever pirate named Jack Sparrow was on the docks below. He had come to try to steal a ship, and he was talking with sentries who guarded the fastest ship in the harbor, the Interceptor. The guards were confident.
There's no ship can match the Interceptor for speed.
I've heard of one. It's supposed to be very fast, nigh uncatchable. The Black Pearl.
Suddenly, a terrified scream rang out. Elizabeth had fallen from the cliffs and was plummeting toward the sea. Jack dove into the water. As he pulled Elizabeth safely onto the dock, he saw the Aztec medallion around her neck.
Where did you get that?
Suddenly, Captain Norrington and his men were there with swords at Jack's throat. Norrington saw the letter P for pirate tattooed on Jack's arm.
Well, well. Jack Sparrow, isn't it?
But Jack was clever and lightning fast. He grabbed a rope and swung up and up, away from the dock and over the streets. He dropped to the ground and ran.
On his heels!
Slipping through the foggy streets, Jack ducked into a blacksmith shop. He was hammering the chains from his arms when Will Turner came in.
You're the one they're hunting. The pirate.
Jack studied Will's face.
You seem somewhat familiar. Have I threatened you before?
Will grabbed a sword and began to fight with Jack. The men dueled on and on, their blades ringing and flashing faster and faster. Will was an excellent swordsman, but Jack was trickier. It looked as if he might escape until the blacksmith sneaked up from behind and hit him over the head. With a thud, Jack went down. When he awoke, he was surrounded by Norrington's troops. This time, there was no escaping. In a dungeon cell deep beneath Fort Charles, Jack watched 3 seedy-looking prisoners trying to tempt a mutt to bring them the keys to their cell. Through the barred window from out at sea came the thud of distant explosions, followed by a high whistling noise, and then cannonballs slammed into the fort walls.
One of those guns. It's the Pearl.
Cannonballs hammered at the town, exploding buildings, docks, ships, and walls. Villagers ran for cover as they dodged flying wood and chunks of stone. Rampaging pirates stormed ashore and raced through the streets, smashing doors and windows, grabbing whatever they found, and setting fires. Elizabeth heard them crash into the mansion. She ran from room to room, trying to escape, but wherever she ran, a pirate was waiting for her. At last, she ducked into a closet.
We know you're here, Poppy. Poppy. We will find you, Poppy. You've got something of ours, and it calls to us.
A pirate yanked the door open and pulled her out. Thinking quickly, Elizabeth yelled.
Parley! I invoke the right of parley. According to the code, you have to take me to your captain.
On the Black Pearl's lantern-lit deck, Elizabeth watched Captain Barbossa's shadowy figure approach. He bared his gold and silver teeth in an evil grin.
You have a name, Missy?
Elizabeth didn't want the pirates to know she was the governor's daughter.
Elizabeth Turner. I want you to leave and never come back.
No.
Elizabeth pulled the Aztec medallion from her neck as she walked to the edge of the ship.
Very well. I'll drop it.
Welcome aboard the Black Pearl, Miss Turner.
Barbossa sailed the Black Pearl out to sea. Elizabeth was now a prisoner. Seeing Elizabeth kidnapped by pirates, Will knew only one man who could help save her, Jack Sparrow. He charged into the dungeon.
You are familiar with that ship, the Black Pearl. Where does it make berth?
Captain Barbossa and his crew of miscreants sail from the dreaded Isla de Muerta. It's an island that cannot be found except by those who already know where it is.
Will reminded Jack of someone he had once known. When he learned Will's full name, Will Turner, Jack finally agreed to help him find and rescue Elizabeth.
If you spring me from this cell, I shall take you to the Black Pearl and your bonny lace.
With Will's help, Jack was free in moments. The two men ran for the docks. They planned to commandeer the fastest ship around, the Interceptor. With Norrington after them, Jack and Will commandeered the Interceptor and put out to sea. Meanwhile, Elizabeth dined with Captain Barbossa on the Black Pearl and listened to his tale about the mysterious medallion.
This is Aztec gold. One of 882 identical pieces they delivered in a stone chest to Cortez himself. But the greed of Cortez was insatiable, so the heathen gods placed upon the gold a terrible curse. There is one way we can end our curse. All the scattered pieces of the Aztec gold must be restored, and the blood repaid. Thanks to ye, we have the final piece.
Suddenly, Elizabeth realized the truth. Barbossa wanted her blood to end the curse. She ran, but Barbossa caught her. Elizabeth plunged a dinner knife into his chest. Calmly, he pulled it out. Elizabeth gasped. There was no wound. Terrified, Elizabeth ran onto the deck and stopped, unable to move or scream. As moonlight streamed down upon Barbossa's pirate crew, she saw not flesh and blood men, but skeletons. Barbossa spun her around, and Elizabeth looked into a grinning skull.
Look! The moonlight shows us for what we really are. We are not among the living, and so we cannot die. You best start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner. You're in one.
On their way to Tortuga to pick up a ship's crew, Jack told Will that his father, Bootstrap Bill Turner, had been a pirate.
Pirate is in your blood, boy, so you'll have to square with that someday.
In the filthy port, Jack found his old friend, Gibbs, sleeping in the mud. Gibbs thought Jack was a fool, but they both knew that Barbossa needed special blood to end the curse. Jack pointed to Will.
That is the child of Bootstrap Bill Turner.
Jack thought he could exchange Will for the Black Pearl, which Barbossa had stolen from him. With Gibbs' help, a rough, weather-beaten crew was soon sailing with Jack through a howling storm. They were catching up to the Black Pearl and its ghostly crew. But would they arrive at Isla de Muerta in time to save Elizabeth? As Jack steered the Interceptor through a graveyard of wrecked ships surrounding the island, Will asked Gibbs about the pirate's history. Gibbs told him that when Jack was captain of the Black Pearl, the first mate tricked him into giving up the secret route to the Aztec treasure. Then the mate led a mutiny and marooned Jack on a deserted island with just one pistol and a single shot.
But Jack, He escaped the island, and he still has that single shot. Oh, he won't use it, though, save on one man. He's mutinous first mate.
Barbosa.
Aye.
Jack approached. It was time to go ashore. As the longboat was lowered, Jack turned to Gibbs.
Keep to the code. Any man who falls behind is left behind.
Rowing to a hiding place, Jack and Will looked down into a vast, treasure-filled cavern where Barbosa stood gripping Elizabeth beside an Aztec stone chest filled with coins. Barbosa raised a stone knife.
Our torment is near an end!
Knocking Jack out of the way, Will scrambled down to save Elizabeth. At that moment, Barbosa cut Elizabeth's hand, smeared her blood on the medallion, and dropped it into the chest. Nothing happened. The curse was not lifted.
What's your father, William Turner?
No.
The pirates got angry.
You brought us the wrong person!
Quarreling and shouting among themselves, the pirates did not see Will help Elizabeth slip away, taking the medallion with them. Suddenly, Barbosa noticed that the medallion was gone. Furious, he ordered his pirates to fetch it back. Just then, Jack appeared.
I know whose blood you need.
When Will and Elizabeth reached the interceptor, Will told them Jack had fallen behind. Keeping to the pirates' code, the crew weighed anchor and sailed away, leaving Jack as Barbosa's prisoner once again on the Black Pearl. Barbosa had refused to negotiate. He vowed to chase the interceptor down and get the medallion back, and this time he'd spare no one. With the Black Pearl gaining on them, Jack's crew tossed their cannonballs overboard to lighten their load and increase their speed, but it was not enough. They had to stand and fight. They loaded their cannons with anything they could find, including silverware, and fired. Smoke filled the air. Jack escaped and swung over to the interceptor, but he was too late. The ship was badly damaged and out of ammunition. Then Will made a brave decision. It was his blood Barbosa wanted. He'd give them the medallion and himself to save the others. But as he rushed into the cabin to fetch the medallion, Will saw Barbosa's monkey grab it and scamper away. Suddenly, a cannonball shattered the interceptor's mast, and it crashed across the cabin hatch. Will was trapped inside, and water was pouring in. Elizabeth struggled to free Will. But as the water rose, Will lost his grip and disappeared. As the battle smoke cleared, Barbosa had won. Jack and his crew were tied up on the deck of the Black Pearl, and Barbosa had the medallion. But he still did not have the person whose blood he needed. Suddenly, Will appeared dripping on the side of the ship. He pointed a pistol at himself.
My name is Will Turner. My father was Bootstrap Bill Turner. His blood runs in my veins. Do as I say, or I'll pull this trigger and be lost to Davy Jones' locker.
Barbosa was forced to agree to Will's terms. He would not harm Elizabeth or Jack and his crew, and Will would return with him to Isla de Muerta. But Barbosa was tricky. Instead of harming Elizabeth and Jack, he marooned them on a deserted island. It was the same one he'd left Jack on before. It was a smuggler's island with caves full of stolen rum. Thinking fast, Elizabeth poured rum on anything that would burn and set it ablaze. Soon smoke poured skyward, signaling to the English Navy. Within hours, Elizabeth and Jack were safely aboard the Dauntless with her father and Norrington. When the two commanders finally agreed to help rescue Will, Jack told them his plan. He would go into the cavern and send the pirates out. When the Dauntless arrived, Norrington surrounded the cavern entrance with longboats full of his Marines. At the same time, Elizabeth escaped from her ship cabin and rowed to the Black Pearl to free Jack's crew. Inside the torch-lit cavern, Barbosa shoved Will to his knees beside the stone chest. Will's life was in danger. Barbosa lifted his knife.
Aye!
But a shout rang out. It was Jack.
The HMS Dauntless is floating just offshore. You order your men to row out to the Dauntless. They do what they do best. There you are with two ships. But what of the Pearl? Name me captain,
But instead of ordering his men to row to the Dauntless, Barbossa told them to walk. This was not in Jack's plan. Silently, the pirates stepped into the water. Overhead, the moon broke through the clouds and shone on them. One by one, they turned to skeletons, walking on the ocean floor, underneath Norrington, and straight to the Dauntless. But Jack would not give up. Tossing Will a sword and grabbing one for himself, Jack attacked Barbossa. While Will held the remaining pirates off, Jack and Barbossa dueled. The cavern rang with the sound of clashing swords. Suddenly, Barbossa plunged his sword into Jack. Jack staggered back, but he wasn't wounded. As the moonlight hit him, he turned into a skeleton with an Aztec coin.
Couldn't resist, mate.
On and on the two skeletons fought, locked in a battle neither could win. At the Dauntless, the skeleton pirates climbed aboard and attacked the unsuspecting sailors. Swords clashed, pistol shots rang out. From his stakeout, Norrington heard the sound of fighting.
Make for the ship!
As Norrington and his men rowed for the Dauntless, Elizabeth reached the Black Pearl. She freed Jack's crew and helped them rid the ship of the remaining pirates. But there was more to be done.
All of you with me! Will is in that cave and we must save him!
But Jack's crew refused to help. They had orders to keep the code. Furious, Elizabeth rowed to the island alone, while the Black Pearl sailed away. On board the Dauntless, the skeleton crew turned the cannons on Norrington and began to fire. In the cavern, Barbossa and Jack dueled in and out of moonlight, turning from living men to skeletons and back again. Then Elizabeth appeared. Barbossa aimed his pistol at her, but before he fired, another shot echoed through the cavern. Barbossa looked down at a hole in his shirt, then at Jack. He held a smoking pistol.
10 years you carry that pistol, now you waste your shot.
He didn't waste it.
Will was beside the Aztec chest. He opened his bleeding fist and dropped the blood-smeared medallion into the chest. The curse was lifted. Barbossa was mortal, and Jack's pistol shot had finished him. He fell forward and lay still. The curse was lifted from all the pirate skeletons. One by one, they dropped their weapons as they realized they were mortal and could be destroyed. The Black Pearl was gone, and they had no escape. Surrounded by Norrington's cheering Marines, the pirates were captive. In the cavern, Will and Elizabeth watched Jack cut his arm, wipe the blood on his coin, and drop it into the chest. With a grinding sound, the lid slammed shut. But Jack's ship was gone. If he wanted to leave the dreadful island, he had to go onto the Dauntless. And once again, he was a prisoner. Just a pirate, like all the rest. Back at Fort Charles, it seemed that Jack's luck had finally run out. But as he stood on the gallows, Will shoved through the crowd and cut his friend free. They raced for the dock, but Norrington and his men surrounded them with raised rifles. Then Elizabeth stepped between Will and Norrington. Norrington looked at her and ordered his men to lower their rifles. Jack sprang to the top of the sea wall. Behind him, the Black Pearl sailed into view. His crew had returned for him.
Gentlemen, you will always remember this as the day that you almost caught Captain Jack Sparrow.
Jack leapt into the water and swam to his ship. Once again, he was free to roam the Caribbean.